Okay, so Reive is a very powerful card. The trouble with the art on this one is his face is not very well defined, so it's a little bit lacking. And actually, the flame effect doesn't do much to actually make the face more defined either. It's a pity. It could have. I mean, it's okay as a card, but I just think I'd prefer if the features were more defined than that. It just again, we look at how much it was before TESL made everything really cheap. I think it would have been better to have a bit more points of interest on the card rather than just that one bit. Quite like the piratey vibe of this card. Quite nice having the hair moving and the blouse as well. But the water in the background's a bit insipid. It could be a lot more interesting than that. I still prefer the premium to the standard because I think it's just nice having the sense of movement. And not a huge amount of excitement in this card, but the art on it's okay. Just this is something more interesting. You've got the sense of movement and the colours just seem a bit more refined. And again, you've got a bit of mist around the bottle as well. That's definitely one that's improved by having a premium version. Again, I'm not really that struck with the art on this one. Some of the art in TESL is really, really beautiful, but other times it's just a little bit on the boring side and there's nothing particularly of interest here. And there's not even that much effort put into the... I mean, there's a little bit of movement in the background, but it's not really a huge amount going on there either, is there? When you consider how many gems it would have costed to craft on that, then it's not really that exciting a premium, is it? Here's one of my favourites from back when I was new. I used to enjoy playing Trebuchet in decks. I like the art on both of them, but I have to admit I do like the because you've got the sense of the movement. It's just a little bit more interesting on the premium version, isn't it? It's a very fun card, particularly if you pair it with, if you can get away with pairing it with Corsair ship, it's good fun. Now, this lady, and I used to play her a lot when I was new, when I had limited connection, and I've kind of nicknamed her Beryl because in one of my previous Dungeons and Dragons groups there was a warrior character that one of my friends played that was very similar to this lady in their attitude and description, so I kind of nicknamed the card Beryl. And that is such a nicer version of it, isn't it? Because you've got the lovely sort of snow effect. That outfit's probably a bit chilly for that weather though, let's face facts. This is a good card to have in Versus Arena. I do actually prefer the standard art version. I think the definition on that's quite good. There's not a huge amount extra going on there either. I just think the standard version's a bit more attractive. Now this guy makes me laugh because I've played decks with him in before. I think it was one of my Outcast decks. And that just makes me giggle. It was such a ridiculous stat line on that. Again, yeah, there's a fair bit going on there, but I actually think the art just looks better when it doesn't have the effects on it, so I think I prefer the standard version here. Now, what can be said about the Widow Daedra? Obviously, it's a staple in Invade decks, but it's also quite good in Arena because it's got good hit power. So even if you're not playing Invade, it's quite good in if you're playing any versus Arena. That outfit looks a bit uncomfortable, doesn't it? Now, while there is an interesting effect going on in the background on that, I just don't think the art on the lady is particularly good. What's the Ebonheart Pact business move along? That's what that guy says. I have actually used him occasionally in a guard deck. I think when I had a quest for summon 30 guards, I just chucked every guard that I could think of into a deck, and I think he was in that deck. He doesn't see much play outside of Arena. I think I slightly prefer the premium version because it's got... I don't know actually, just the way the light's done on that, it just looks a bit more defined than the standard version. Very useful charge card. Very good because you can just wade in and finish a game, or he can wade in and just take out weaker opponents. But I'm not a great fan, although it's a very useful card, I'm not a great fan of the art. Again, it's a little bit too dark. And although there's the premium effects on there, it still doesn't look particularly great, the art. There's more interesting cards. Maybe it's just a little bit too dark. This guy I really like, he's great fun because you get a random item off of him. And that. I've used him in a Redder Rally deck and he gave great value. In fact, I've even finished games with him before, so he's quite versatile. I actually prefer the standard version. Again, I think in this respect, the sort of effects on it detract from the art. It's just much more defined in the standard version. This is quite a fun card. I see him played occasionally. I actually think I prefer the standard version because the art, again, the colours on it's very attractive and the art's very well defined. There's a good amount of contrast in the picture. And although at first glance you think the effect on that's quite pretty, it just detracts from the definition of the art, so I definitely prefer the standard version of that. Very useful dragon card. I'd say it's not one of the better. I mean, it's a good effect, obviously, but I think in terms of the art, there are better looking dragons. And they probably could have done a little bit more with this card. I mean, the flame effect's okay. Maybe if they had a bit more driving snow in the background as a contrast, it would be better, but I think there's just more attractive dragon cards out there. Burn and Pillage does get used a fair bit on ladder. I think definitely the premium is way better than the standard version. I think this guy says, "I'm not here to hurt you, but I will," and he doesn't get much play outside of Arena, but it's quite a fun card for if you can get the plot ability to go off. I mean, you never see him in Orc decks. I like both versions of the art. I think it's one of the better Orc arts out there. I think I'll award the better sort of award to the premium in this case because it actually is quite atmospheric. Okay, even though I'm not a great fan of a lot of the Daedra cards, I think the art on them's not very good. This one is quite good fun. It sets up a swarm. Although it's got a nice fire effect now, I actually think the static card is, again, it's more attractive because the art on it is more defined. Oh, this guy does get used sometimes. But I think I'm not really a great fan of the art on either of them. I mean, there's a bit of smoke there, a little bit of light, but again, you look at what you're getting back in the days when you had to sweat lots of gems in order to get premium cards, then probably not a huge amount that you're getting for the extra gems. Not anything particularly exciting about the art on this one. And again, not really, I mean, there's a few effects on there, but it's not really anything to write home about, is it? Now, this lady, I do really like the art on it. There's a good sense of fluidity, and again, it's one of the cards you get as a new player, so there's always that nostalgia when you see her there. And occasionally, I mean, it's quite occasional because obviously there's quite an expense for the card. You do sometimes see her in a Doomcrag deck, which must be quite funny when you can get it to go off. Yeah, I think I like both the original and that equally, actually. I mean, there are some sort of fairly relaxing effects in the background, but I think I like them both pretty equally. Nothing exciting about this the art on this one. He very rarely gets seen outside of Versus Arena. Even the effect of the weapon's not particularly thrilling, so I think it's still fairly insipid. Again, this is a case where I actually do prefer, even though there's an interesting effect on the premium, I do prefer the standard one because it is, again, the art, it just stands out more. There's much more definition between the character and the background. And yes, you got the effect, but I think almost having the colour around the weapons detracts from the definition. In fact, around the wall, there's that haze, isn't there? I actually think I prefer the standard one. Okay, this doesn't really get played a lot. Occasionally it might be like a random pull. The art's alright, but it's a little bit on the dark side. If you hear a ripping sound back, that's my cat Marcia decided to rip the furniture. Anyway, back to this one. You can see there's a big improvement with the Primo here. You've got the light coming through the ceiling, and you've got the flames, and then there's obviously a brazier somewhere with the sparks coming off of it. So it's just a massive improvement to the card overall. Much better. Really does bring it to life. This guy looks a little bit sorry for himself. He could do with a good hearty meal, couldn't he? Fairly atmospheric, the card, but not really, the art's not really to my taste. I mean, that does improve it a bit with the sort of lightning effect in the background. It's a pity he's not actually looking towards the viewer, really. I think that would make it a better card in terms of art. The number of times that I've been given this randomly when I've been playing a game, get it as some kind of random effect, I'm always a bit annoyed when I get it, but I do know people who use this item along with Breakthrough to actually get a unstoppable rage win. It's okay. The effect on the premium is quite attractive, but not one of my favourites by far. But it's one that I tend to get annoyed about if I get it, actually. This one I already know, as I actually did craft the premium for a giant deck a while back that I played, called a Giant Problem. I really prefer the premium because of the, you'll see here, you can really see these sort of markings. I think they're meant to be tattoos. So much more defined on there. The premium is way better in my opinion. Very rarely see this one on ladder. However, I think the premium's got just more interest in it going on. Obviously the flame effect and the sense of movement just gives the eye a bit more to be interested in. I do occasionally see this. Often it'll be in like a prophecy heavy deck because giving damage to the player means that they can draw a card off it. I'm not a great fan of the art on it, so again it's a little bit on the dark side. And even though it's improved a bit by some of the effects on there, it's still not the most exciting card visually to look at, is it? Here's Ulfric. He doesn't often get much love on ladder, does he? But the art's okay on it. The sword effect is good on here, but even so, when you think how much premium is used to cost gem-wise, there doesn't really seem to be a huge amount extra for the gems that people will expend crafting this. It's quite an attractive card, but it's brought a little bit more than just the flame effect on the sword. Vigilante, very good as a finisher and also as if you want to eliminate something problematic that's hiding in the shadow lane. I do like the art on this card, and it's actually quite a nice outfit she's got on there. Let's have a look here. Yeah, I do prefer this version. We've got the definition around the sort of bow. Bit more detail stands out on the outfit as well. And her face, because you've got the light behind it, just looks that bit more defined as well. Another very, very useful card if you're running like either Dwem Crab or with Dwem Crab of Orcs, or you might be running just an Orc deck. I actually think the standard art is better, because if you look at that, and then you look here, it's one of those cases where I think the background actually detracts from the art of the character, so I think I prefer the standard version. This one always makes me smile. It went through a phase where it was, when I was first starting the game, where you just play it and it would get removed straight away, and then it seemed to never be played by anyone, and then it had a resurgence in sort of ebb and slay decks mainly, where they can ramp and get it out quickly. I do actually prefer the premium version there. You've got the glinting eyes. It just looks a bit more vicious and sinister. Most of the time when you get playing this Cliff Hunter, I mean, my personal short take on it is that how useless you can't hit face with the on the enemy. But having said that, it can be a decent card in versus arena. Not a great fan of the art in either version, really. Here's another staple of many decks, Cradle Crush. And I think I prefer, well, no, I definitely do prefer the standard version over the premium. I just think There's just more definition and contrast in the standard version than there is in the premium one. Now here's a bolt, I say a bolt of nostalgia, a bit like being hit by a lightning bolt out of the sky. I've never played Invade, but I know he's an Invade card, but I did used to play Dread Clan for a lot when I was a newbie, and I've recently featured him in a deck. I'm thinking about doing a deck based around him actually, because he's always like, and maybe another Outcast deck. He's always shunned on ladder, and I think it'd be quite funny to have him in a deck. I might try and either find a deck that would allow me to copy him, or maybe I'll do him in an archer deck so he gets to fly backwards and forwards on the board and get buffed. We'll see. But he looks a bit like a dinosaur-y type thing to me. I know he's probably some kind of dragon, but he looks very, almost a bit Triceratopsy. Anyway, I'm planning on featuring him in another deck sometime. I think he has had a brief appearance on one of my more recent videos, but I'd like to do a deck around him just for a laugh. And I do prefer, I like both versions, but I think I prefer that one, the premium. Not a huge amount of interest here, and I very rarely see the card being played. The colours in the background are quite nice. That's a massive improvement because you've got the sunrise coming over the mountain and the snow effect paired together, so that provides an interesting contrast. So that's a massive improvement for the premium. Hunter Killers, you do see these occasionally on ladder. Not a great fan of the art, but most of the fabricants don't look particularly attractive, do they? That's quite an interesting effect in the background, but I think I do prefer the standard version, again, because it just has more definition to it. Never happy to see this guy when I'm playing against Invade. He's a right pain in the butt. Quite an attractive flame effect there. And I like the way it reaches to his face as well. So I think marginally that one's probably better than the standard one, marginally. Lyris is another favourite of mine. I like the sense of movement in the card. I like the axe. I think the weapon's very attractive. And the premium does eke ahead in terms of being better because you've got that glintle on the weapon there, as well as the light in the background and her movement of her clothes. Nothing particularly exciting about this card, but it is quite a decent card in if you're playing it in Arena. Oh, I hadn't noticed his eyes glowed before. You got the smoke and the light in the background. That is an improvement on the original. Very rarely see this outside of Arena, and well, it's got a nice pair of fangs on it, so it's not the best art going. I suppose it's quite interesting the way the ruff is moving around its head. Still not the most exciting card. This guy has the most weird, I think it's a hat or a helmet rather than a hairstyle. I used to play him in a couple of decks, but he always seemed to like to turn up in my hand early when he was no use whatsoever. Do you prefer the premium version? There's a nice bit of fire going on in the background there. This lady tends to get killed as soon as she lands on the board. You don't often manage to get value out of her. But it's still a very fun card if you do manage to get value. I think I prefer the static version again. I think there's more definition on the face and the body. So while that's a pretty effect, it's not massively engaging, and also I think it detracts from the definition of the card art. This dragon obviously gets played a lot. He's been used more and more in Redoran dragons as a form of removal. I actually prefer the standard art on that. I think it's just, again, it's more defined than that, and there's not a huge amount different going on this one. Now I do like Stampede Sentinel. It's nice having the mammoths in the background there, and also he's got a very useful effect. And I do run him occasionally in Ebon decks, so I like the art on that one. There's a nice effect in the sky behind him, and there's also the smoke effect as the mammoths are coming out of the smoke or fog. However, I do prefer the standard version, just the art on it looks much more defined, whereas there's less, because of the effects on there, it just dilutes it somehow. I always think the Sill's outfit looks a bit drafty and not particularly practical for fighting. However, I do still prefer the standard art. I just think with the effects going on, the face is a little bit more obscured by the effects. I just think the art stands out more, has more definition on the standard version. Maybe it's something about some of the Nord art, but I mean, there are some nice looking Nord art cards, but this one just looks a bit boring to me. Not a huge amount going on here. There's a subtle effect in the sky in the background. A bit of a glint on the weapons and the armour. But nothing to write home about. I do prefer the alt art on him. I do think it's like he's sitting forward paying attention to or holding court, having an audience, and he's paying attention. Just think the art's better. Not the most exciting art for this one. Looks like there's some kind of brawl going on. Again, I think because some of the cards are quite dark in terms of the outfit and the light on the face. There's a little bit more light on that one. But I'm not a fan of the art, regardless of the effect or not. Now this is fun because traditionally this used to get paired with like a lethal sort of weapon in order to take out a whole lane. You still occasionally see it, but she's not often played anymore. And this is a case where I do actually prefer the premium version. I just think she stands out more against the background. Now this is a very greedy card. I know several people have managed to put it off where they either get a Dark Seducer or Mulaamnir or something on the board and double its power and health. It's a very slow card. But definitely I'll say the art on the premium is much superior. You've got the light on the sense of movement there. This is another one that I have affection for, both from when I was a new player, because it was in one of my. I think the first deck I got given was this one. Like when you start the game, you get given a deck, and then you do the story to get more decks. And I think this was the first deck I got as standard. And I love it. This goes blood running hot. I can't do the accent very well because she snarls it, doesn't she? Actually, my Dungeons and Dragons character in my current D&D group, I use her as the avatar for my cleric. Just the headshot. I do actually prefer the standard art on this. I just think, look at her features. They're just a bit more defined and she stands out more as a whole than she does. Nice as the effects are here, I just think she stands out more in the standard art. I do actually like the sort of art on this one. I think the sort of detail on the battle axe is quite interesting. Particularly here. And that's just, it does make it look more attractive as a card, the premium version. So I really like that. I also recall a story, there was a match that Schwar did where he was trying to use Gerald Forager and do Rage with her, and he actually managed to get, he randomly just drew the battle axe and got the buff on Gerald and was able to do Rage with her. It was really good. Very, very lucky, but very fun to see. Here's one of my darlings, Belly G. As a support killer, I really love killing support, so I'm always happy to see him when he turns up. Except when it's like the start of the match and I don't have the ring, of course. I like the art on both of them. I think the snow effect just lets this one league ahead in terms of likability. Just going to adjust this headset a sec. I have played this one in the past on ladder, but very few people do. The art on it's quite dark, the colours and that, so I'm not as keen on it as some of the art in TESL. That actually makes it come to life more, doesn't it? 'Cause you've got the way it's lit up in the background. That actually is a very good example of how a premium can elevate the art on a card. Because that's way better. Here's another one of my darlings. Very good for catching Telvanni in late game actions. And I do actually like the premium on this. I like the detail on his staff. And you just get that flicker of flame in the background as well. It's also making his eyes glow a bit from the light from the staff. So that's a very nice premium, that is. Now this could be a real pain to deal with, and I do occasionally see it particularly in Ebon Slay decks. The art is quite dark on there though, it's quite hard to see the definition on the character's face. Quite a nice effect on the, well, quite an attractive effect. Master, please stop ripping things up. Quite an attractive effect with the sense of movement, moving away from the character. But it's still quite dark art, and it's still quite hard to see their face with any real definition. Now this one I used to use a lot in ladder. I used to have an Ebon deck, and I would always try and get it onto the charge as either a finisher or just to take out anything problematic. So I do have a fair amount of affection for this card. And it's very good in versus arena. I think I prefer the standard version, I just think the art is more defined on there. Again, this is a very fun card in arena, and occasionally you'll see it as burn reach damage in on ladder. Quite rare, but you do occasionally see it. I think again, I prefer the art on the standard version. It just looks a bit more defined. It looks a little bit more insipid here. This is a very fun dragon to play. In theory, it'd be fun in like Redder and Doomcrag dragons, but I don't think I've ever seen anyone pull off getting a total kill with it when we've paired with Doomcrag. That is, I've never actually seen that combination go off, but it would be quite funny. Quite a nice flame effect from the mouth, but they could have done a bit more of the background because it's a little bit. You can see some movement in the sky, but it's a little bit more insipid, isn't it? I just don't find this very appealing visually. It's a bit boring in my book. And even with a few effects thrown in, it's still a bit on the boring side. I think, again, because it's quite hard to see the character. Can't really see their face much. I'm kind of fond of this dragon because, again, it's quite good as a finisher. It has a decent stat line. I don't know why, it does remind me of a huge, I'm probably completely wrong about this, but it kind of makes me think of a massive, gigantic hummingbird, but I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just the very long sort of nose on it. That's kind of my nickname for it anyway, it's the hummingbird. Which is probably totally inaccurate, but still fun. It's fun to have nicknames for cards. So here we come to what's a very, very popular card in game. You've got. I think I'm not a great fan of the art on the traditional Unstoppable Rage, to be fair. I think if anything, the standard version is better because it's got more definition on it, and that always looks distorted to me. I couldn't be bothered to do whichever. I think it was a melee. I only ever bothered to do get one copy of that. I think it was a particular event where there was a lot of invade, and I just thought, oh, this is too boring to play against. So, but it is quite much a big improvement, I think, in the art on the alternative version of Rage. Great fun giant. This one's very funny. It makes a funny noise when he comes out, which I can't replicate, unfortunately. I'm not very good with imitating voices, but I quite like Vigilant Giant. It looks like he's off for a leisurely stroll somewhere, doesn't it? Again, they haven't done a huge amount different with the premium. I actually think the standard art, again, has more definition, so it's just a bit better. Even though I think this support is very expensive for what it is. The art's, I quite like the two colours together, the red and the green together. It's quite an interesting piece of art. It's almost like antlers holding it up. And that is a big improvement. You've got a lot more of interest to the eye with the red at the centre and the green moving in the background. So a big improvement with the premium there. Here's one of my darlings. As soon as I was able to get, it took me ages to get one aspect of her scene. I spent a lot of time saving gems in order to craft one. I never ever got it as a random card or random pack openings and that. So I've been so happy the day I managed to craft one of these, and I like both versions of the card really. If I had to pick between the two, I do like the green. It's just a bit deeper on the premium, but it's very. I mean, I love them both, and it's just such a great finisher. It can also be a little bit of a disappointment if you get the in-game bug where you can't move the cards. I had a game where I was about to kill the opponent off because they only had 6 health, and I went to pick charge for aspect of her scene, and the game would not let me select an option, and so I was frozen there. And because I was on a laptop, I couldn't quickly reload. I was frozen there, and I lost the game because I was frozen for like 3 or 4 rounds, and the opponent was able to come back, and it just wouldn't let me pick an option for it. It was just frozen. So, but most of the time it works fine, and you can get the charge option on it. So I'm very fond of this card, and I like both versions pretty much equal. This version just ever so slightly nudges ahead with the beautiful green in the background. A very, very handsome dragon. I know there's an alt art version of this, which sadly I don't own. However, I do think that the art on this is much more attractive. You can see the dragon much better. It's a very, very handsome dragon. Kind of a rival for Odovig in terms of the Dragon Handsomeness Club. So pity there's not a bit more movement in the card for the premium version. I think I prefer the standard version. Again, he looks just more defined in it. As I said, unfortunately I don't have the alt art version, but I do think he looks much more impressive in this version. One of the better pieces of art for Daedra. Very, very useful card. Not just in invade decks, but useful if you want that extra bit of damage. I actually prefer Head and Shoulders above this version, although it's got interest in it. I just think the standard version is so much more defined. You can see him much better. He just stands out more against the background, so I think the standard version is definitely way better than the premium in this case. Red Year, staple in a lot of decks. Even some aggressive decks will run this just if they encounter a problem with control and that. So just a very useful card. Particularly if you're playing against Invade and they've just done a Forces of Destruction, you want to wipe out their whole field. So very, very useful card. And I do like the premium version better because of the sense of movement in it. Last but not least on the strength side, is it last but not least? I think it must be. Lord of the Arena. So he actually, for a long period of time, was hardly ever played, but with Eyelid Guardians having become so popular on ladder in the last year, Lord of the Arena's made a bit of a comeback, because while he's a bit expensive, he can actually make 2 Eyelids fight each other, and therefore is quite good removal, and also the same cost as an Eyelid as well. So he has had a bit of a revival recently. I prefer the standard version. I just think, again, although it's quite an interesting effect on here, I just think the art's much more defined. He stands out more on the standard version than he does on that. And that concludes the roundup of the card art on the strength cards. I'd be interested to know what your favourites are, so let me know in the comments if you've got time to drop a comment. Just let me know in a couple of lines what your favourite strength cards are, and whether you prefer the standard or the premium art versions. And if you own an alt art of any of them, then let me know. I hope you're enjoying the game in the last month. And until next time, may you walk on warm sands.
I do not fear death.